I was sitting on the couch when my husband, Michael, suddenly burst into the room. His eyes were ablaze with anger, and his voice was trembling with frustration. I could tell that something was terribly wrong. "Sheila," he growled, "we need to talk." I tried to keep my composure, but his tone sent shivers down my spine. "Of course, Michael. What's going on?" He paced back and forth for a moment before turning to face me. "I've made a decision, and you're not going to like it." My heart sank. What could be so grave that he looked ready to explode? I nervously asked, "What is it?" His words hit me like a sledgehammer. "I've decided to give our house to my brother, Kevin, and his wife." I couldn't believe my ears. Our home, the place where we had built our life together, was being handed over to someone else. "Michael, are you out of your mind? This is our property, our life savings invested in this house." He clenched his fists, his face reddening. "They're newlyweds, Sheila. They need a place to start their life together. If you refuse, I'm filing for divorce." The room seemed to close in around me, and I struggled to make sense of Michael's ultimatum. Divorce? Over our home? It was unfathomable. I mustered the courage to respond, my voice shaky but resolute. "Michael, this house is our home. We've invested years of hard work and love into it. I won't just give it away." Michael's face contorted with anger, and he took a menacing step closer to me. "You don't understand, Sheila. Kevin and Emily deserve this house. They need it more than we do. It's for the best." Tears welled up in my eyes as I realized the gravity of the situation. Michael, the man I had shared my life with, was willing to tear our family apart over this. I had to tread carefully, choosing my words with caution. "We can find another solution, Michael. We can help Kevin and Emily without sacrificing our home." His eyes narrowed, and he sneered, "You're being unreasonable, Sheila. This is my final decision. It's them or the house." The room fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the pounding of my heart. I knew that standing my ground could lead to the end of our marriage, but I couldn't fathom surrendering our home without a fight. The battle lines had been drawn, and I had a difficult choice ahead of me. As I grappled with the shock of Michael's ultimatum, my thoughts drifted back to the early days when I first met Kevin. He had been the epitome of kindness and humility, someone who brought warmth to our family gatherings. I remembered how we had first crossed paths at a summer barbecue. Kevin was introduced to me as Michael's younger brother, and he had a disarming smile that put everyone at ease. We struck up a conversation, and I quickly discovered that he was not just charming but genuinely compassionate. He had a heart of gold and an easygoing nature that made it easy to connect with him. Over the years, Kevin became a familiar presence at family gatherings. He and I grew closer, sharing stories and dreams. He was pursuing a career in environmental science, driven by a desire to make the world a better place. I admired his dedication and was proud to call him family. But everything changed one fateful day when tragedy struck our family. Kevin's parents, my in-laws, were on a flight that ended in disaster. There were no survivors. The news was devastating, and the grief that washed over us was almost too much to bear. Kevin, in particular, was profoundly affected. He withdrew from everyone, retreating into a shell of his former self. The spark in his eyes had dimmed, and the carefree spirit I had come to know seemed to have vanished. The weight of losing his parents had cast a dark shadow over his soul, and I couldn't help but feel a deep sadness for him. As I thought back on those trying times, I realized that the events of that fateful day had marked the beginning of a transformation in Kevin. Little did I know that this transformation would eventually lead to a rift that threatened to tear our family apart. As the days turned into weeks, and Michael's insistence on giving our home to Kevin and Emily persisted, the pressure from them intensified. They began to bombard me with calls and visits, demanding that I acquiesce to their demands. Kevin, once the caring and gentle soul I had known, had become unrecognizable. It was as if the tragedy of losing his parents had twisted his character, or perhaps it had just revealed a side of him that had always existed beneath the surface. He and Emily, who had once been quiet and reserved, were now a formidable force, determined to claim our home. They insisted that there had been some obscure verbal agreement between Michael and Kevin that gave them the right to our house. They cited the need for a fresh start as newlyweds and were relentless in their pursuit. It was almost as if they believed that possessing the house would somehow heal the wounds left by the loss of Kevin's parents. Their threats grew more menacing by the day. They talked about taking legal action, and their words took on a sinister tone. They warned of physical eviction, making it clear that they were willing to resort to extreme measures to seize our home. I tried to reason with them, to show them the documents proving my substantial financial contributions to the mortgage payments. But my efforts fell on deaf ears. They were consumed by a sense of entitlement and avarice that I had never seen before. The walls were closing in, and I felt like a cornered animal, trapped in a situation that was spiraling out of control. The house, which had once been a place of love and security, had become a battleground, and I found myself facing an unimaginable choice between my home and the man I had once loved. As the relentless pressure from Kevin and Emily continued to mount, I couldn't help but reflect on how far our relationship had deteriorated. The peaceful family gatherings and joyful celebrations of the past were replaced by bitter confrontations and heated arguments. Kevin's transformation was particularly disheartening. The young man who had once aspired to make the world a better place had turned into someone driven solely by greed and entitlement. The tragedy of losing his parents had changed him in ways I couldn't have predicted. He had become fixated on our house, as if it held the key to healing his wounded soul. Emily, once quiet and reserved, had become the driving force behind their relentless pursuit of our home. She seemed determined to assert her dominance in our family dynamics, pushing Kevin further down this treacherous path. It was as though they were willing to do anything to claim what they believed was rightfully theirs. The threats of physical eviction weighed heavily on my mind. I had invested not only my money, but also my heart and soul into that house. It was the place where my children had grown, where we had shared countless cherished moments as a family. The thought of being forcibly removed from it was unbearable. Yet, even in the face of these threats, I couldn't deny that the marriage I had once cherished had eroded to its breaking point. Michael's unwavering support for Kevin's demands had left me feeling betrayed and abandoned. The man I had loved seemed unrecognizable, his loyalty to his brother overshadowing his commitment to our family. It was a dark and harrowing time, and I knew that a difficult decision lay ahead. I had to find a way to protect what was rightfully mine, while also finding a path to escape the turmoil that had taken hold of our lives. The battle for our home raged on, but I was determined to stand my ground, no matter the cost. As the relentless battle over our home continued, I couldn't help but think about our children. Michael and I had built a life together, and our two beautiful kids meant the world to me. It was agonizing to witness how the pressure from Kevin and his wife, Emily, had caused Michael to prioritize their demands over the well-being of our family. I had hoped that the bond we shared as a family would ultimately prevail, but it became increasingly clear that Michael was willing to sacrifice our happiness for the sake of his brother. He seemed to be blinded by loyalty to Kevin, ignoring the emotional toll this ordeal was taking on our children. Our kids were confused and hurt by the constant tension in our home. They had witnessed their parents' love turn into bitterness, and it was heartbreaking to see the toll it was taking on their innocence. Despite my best efforts to shield them from the conflict, their lives were being disrupted and their sense of security shattered. I had reached my breaking point. I couldn't bear to see my children suffer any longer. It was heart-wrenching, but I knew that I had to protect them from the toxic environment that had engulfed our family. It was a difficult decision, but I made the choice to leave Michael, taking our children with me. In the midst of the chaos, I found a new man who cared deeply for me and our children. He provided us with a stable and loving environment, far removed from the turmoil we had experienced with Michael. He built us a new home, one filled with warmth and laughter, and he helped me secure a fulfilling job. While I had found happiness and stability in my new life, Michael remained steadfast in his decision to give our house to Kevin and Emily. He followed through on his threat, leaving us with the bitter aftermath of his choices. The house that had once been a symbol of our love and dreams was now in the hands of others, and my heart ached for what was lost. Yet, in the end, I knew that my decision to leave had been the right one for the sake of our children. It had allowed us to escape the toxic grip of loyalty and greed that had torn our family apart. As the years passed, I couldn't help but wonder if Michael ever regretted his choices, and I hoped that someday he would come to realize the true cost of prioritizing his brother's desires over the well-being of his own family. In the aftermath of my decision to leave Michael and start a new life with our children, the wounds of our shattered family slowly began to heal. My new partner, who had shown me unwavering support and love, helped us rebuild our lives from the ground up. He was a kind and compassionate man who understood the pain I had endured and was determined to provide us with the stability and happiness we deserved. Together, we built a beautiful home where laughter and love filled every corner. My children flourished in this nurturing environment, and their smiles returned, brighter than ever. I had also secured a fulfilling job that allowed me to provide for my family and regain a sense of independence. The future was looking brighter, and the scars of the past were slowly fading away. Meanwhile, Michael's decision to give our house to Kevin and Emily had taken its toll. The burden of a new mortgage and the responsibilities of homeownership proved to be more challenging than they had anticipated. Their relationship began to fracture under the strain, and the dream house they had coveted for so long became a source of bitterness. It was a bitter irony that the very house they had fought so hard to claim ended up causing them financial hardship and emotional turmoil. It seemed that karma had a way of evening the score. As I watched from a distance, I couldn't help but reflect on the twists and turns our lives had taken. The house, once a symbol of love and dreams, had become a burden for Michael, Kevin, and Emily. The price of their obsession had been steep, and the consequences of their actions were undeniable. My new partner had given me the love and support I needed, and together, we had built a life filled with happiness and contentment. I had learned that true love and loyalty should never come at the expense of one's own well-being and the well-being of their children. As I moved forward, I held on to the lessons I had learned from this tumultuous chapter of my life. It was a painful journey, but it had led me to a place of strength and resilience.